This is Boxing Tickets, and we are delighted to be joined. I'm not going to call you the governor anymore because, Tommy, you're the BI Celtic Super Middleweight Champion, so you've got a new name already. How sound?
All is good, Steve. All is good. Yeah, at home now the last couple of weeks, and home for another couple of weeks. So I'm enjoying. I wouldn't say downtime because I'm still training away and staying busy, but good to be home.
Every time I speak to you, the sun's shining, and I'm just wondering if you got some sort of reflective
I
glass
think
from
that
the
I
car.
think that's just it just looks like that, but it's actually very dull here now down in Cork. So it looks like it's going to start lashing any minute. So no sun here.
Typical Irish weather.
Yeah, big time.
I guess sort of now it's probably fair to say sometimes you get your first professional title, you probably feel like a pro now. Like obviously, if you get that sense of accomplishment, sort of now that obviously did you beat Craig McCarthy for the Celtic belt? Do you sort of feel like a fully fledged pro now?
I suppose. I don't know. It was just another fight, really. I've my said on much bigger titles, but it was at the end of the day, it was still a nice title to get. It looked like a nice title, and it was great to come back into the bar with the title, and everyone kind of got a bit of a buzz off that. But I've my eyes set on much bigger titles and bigger nights. But it's a good stepping stone. So yeah, it was a great night, and as I said, it was a stepping stone, is the way I'm looking at it.
Yeah, I know obviously you bigger aspirations and everything else, but I guess sometimes when you get that first belt under the over the shoulder and you sort of that sense of pride, sort of you can go, now I actually feel like I'm doing something, sort of, you're not just going through the motions with a 6 round or somewhere somebody you don't really know. You've had your first sort of on paper, it was supposed to be a competitive fight, with another fellow Irishman. So you sort of now know that the sort of your levels above that. So that's your first sort of tick box.
Yeah, the fight went perfect for me. I've no complaints with how the fight went, and the preparation for the fight was very, very good, and I felt great going into the fight. In fairness to Craig, he showed how tough he was. He took some good shots, and he always came back firing. And he came to fight. He came to win over in San Francisco. Fair play to him. And yeah, it was great to be able to bring back a belt, and it was just that kind of bit more of accomplishment. You're bringing back something with you after the win. In fairness, I didn't get my Celtic title yet, but Craig let me hold on to it for a few celebrations in Cork, so I dropped that back to him in Waterford last week, and I met his mum and brothers and stuff. So it was nice. It was nice to see them after the fight, and yeah, there's great respect between me and Craig before the fight, and the same afterwards.
I think Craig sometimes sort of gets, probably slated in some way, sort of, trying to build fights sometimes with fighters. As you know, a lot of times when there's beef between fighters, it's not real. But obviously there was no beef between you and Craig. You didn't bring any beef. He sort of didn't really do an interview, sort of. So obviously there wasn't sure there was any beef that side. In some ways, were you surprised and how comfortable sort of the fight was for you? Obviously, I can remember watching it, and because obviously the show just finished in Galway, I was sort of uploading interviews, and obviously it just came at the right time. It's sort of your and Brandon fights happened. But were you surprised at probably how easy it? Well, not to say it was easy, because obviously no fight's easy anyway. But were you surprised about how comfortable it was for you in there?
I'm not really. I knew I was after training, but I was after ticking all the boxes in LA training. So I knew that once I played myself right, that the fight was going to go how I wanted it to go, and that was the game plan. That's how we thought the fight was going to go, really. But yeah, we know Craig is no slouch. He was coming to win, as I said, and he comes in great shape. And he lets his hands go, and he tried his best. So obviously you have to be on top form. And once I was on top form, I knew that there was only going to be one result at the end of the day, and thankfully that's what happened.
I guess a good thing for you is obviously in your biggest sort of fight to date, it's been your best performance as well. Like I think it was straight right hands that sort of put him down, sort of as well. So like when you know that them sort of straight shots are sort of, I guess with anything when you're putting someone down with that, and you're boxing very well, you know that you're ready for that next step now as well.
100%, and even like it was a good performance and all that. I felt every time I was landing, I felt very strong. I felt even pushing him back and stuff. I felt imposing and very strong at the weight. And I know there's a lot more in me than that. I didn't need to, not that I didn't need to show it. I don't want to sound like that, but I didn't show it in the fight. But there's a lot more in me. and there's a lot more to come from me as well as the opposition keeps stepping up all the time, which it will as I keep going up the rankings. I think I'll be more than ready for it, and I'm looking forward to stepping up and proving myself.
I guess in some ways you're probably relieved in the fifth round when obviously David Irvine stepped in. Obviously Craig's a proud man. He's never going to, nobody's ever going to want to stop. They're always going to want to keep trying. So in some ways, for obviously the health of obviously Craig, you were sort of relieved that David Irvine stepped in and sort of waved it off rightfully.
Yeah, like anytime I felt like I hurt him, he come back firing straight away. So I don't think that would have been any different if that fight wasn't stopped. Then he would have came out firing again. In fairness to me, he fights with his heart on his sleeve, so you can't take that away from him.
Were you sort of, I guess you were in preparation for the fight, were you sort of surprised then when you went online, and I know the sort of, you're obviously now mandatory for the Irish title, but were you sort of surprised when, I think it's been Cathal Crowley, it's been the sort of one that's sort of saying that him and Kevin Cronin were fighting for the Irish title, like when you were coming back, and obviously you're prepared, you got the belt, and you're sort of looking at it and you're going, these guys are fighting for the Irish title. Were you sort of shocked when you seen that?
I wouldn't say shocked because I knew what the situation was. I was actually training with Cathal this morning, so me and Cathal get on very well. And as I said before, I get on very well with Kevin as well. But once you win the Celtic title, you're mandatory, so there's no skipping the queue. There's if they want to fight for it, they know where I am. And that goes to anyone in the weight. I'm friendly with, like, there's no beef with any of the lads. But if they want to fight for the Irish title, I'd gladly fight any of them. And I'm here waiting to fight for the Irish title. They can come down to Cork and we can sell out an arena in Cork and put on a good show for all the boxing fans in Ireland and fight for the Irish title then. So I'm willing to fight anyone for it.
It was sort of came as a shock to me because sort of, I was the first one that obviously interviewed Cathal after the fight, and sort of mentioning obviously him going 8 rounds for the first time, and he's like, yeah, wanted to go 8 rounds because I'm fighting Kevin Cronin next for Irish title, and I was like, what's going on? This came from absolutely nowhere. He didn't mention anything before the interview started, and I was like, normally I would have a heads up sometimes that fights are happening. I was like, what's going on? And I was like, obviously you were to fight a couple of hours later for the Celtic belt, and I thought, well, it obviously has to be announced before you would fight for the Celtic title, and it was a sort of strange scenario. But like, you're not, obviously your next fight's announced now in Connecticut in June, so it's not like you're fighting in Connecticut and they can pull a fast one and fight for the Irish title at home.
No, because if they want to fight for the Irish title, they can fight me. I come home the next week and fight them, and after my fight in Connecticut. Hopefully all goes well there. I'm not looking past that fight, of course, but I suppose everyone was kind of surprised that Cathal was saying he was fighting Kevin. It's a great fight if they do fight. I've sparred both lads, and they both come in and throw their shots to let their hands go. So I think it'll be a very entertaining fight if they do fight, but it just won't be for the Irish title.
It's obviously there's other ones obviously to come into the mix. I know Emmet Brennan sort of not, he's the Celtic champion, obviously light heavyweight at the moment, because that was obviously a catch weight, sort of doesn't make him eligible for the Irish title at 168. So like if he obviously gets it, I think if he needs to get a win very close to the super middleweight limit, I don't know how the BUI work it, but like it's getting very tasty obviously at 168. Obviously, yourself, Kevin Cronin, Cathal Crowley, Emmet Brennan, you still obviously Craig McCarthy can go back there as well. There was actually another one I missed.
Morrissey.
Morrissey, you've 5 or 6 guys there, and it's still in that old sort of mantle that you could nearly have like a Super Six or like an 8-man tournament sort of. It's crazy to think, but that's obviously shows that the levels that's sort of coming through in Irish boxing now, that everything can get very competitive, which can only help boxing.
Yeah, definitely, it'd be great. It's great to have so many lads in Ireland around the same weight, and hopefully there's plenty of fights between all of us. Of course, I want to win the Irish title and then move on to the next level after that. But you just have to take one fight at a time. I'm concentrating on Connecticut now in June and see what the crack is after that. But it's, as I said, it's great. There's so many good lads at 168 pounds super middleweight. So there's the potential of some great fights there. I know Kevin and Jamie fought already. Me and Craig fought, and hopefully there's plenty more of these fights happening.
I guess in some ways did the sort of Connecticut decision sort of come about because I guess you won the belt and you're sort of going Matchroom, Eddie Hearn, Katie Taylor, Dublin. It worked out the perfect scenario. Then they obviously fight for an Irish title there. Did it sort of was the Connecticut decision always made prior to sort of that, or was that sort of was that the next move sort of because Katie Taylor wasn't going to fight in Ireland?
So the Connecticut fight happened because we were looking to fight in Boston and get around back to the Boston area, because I get a lot of support in Boston, and there's people asking me when am I going to be fighting there next. So there wasn't really any big shows in Boston, and the next one was Mohegan Sun, which is Mohegan Sun Casino, which is a great venue, and it's only about an hour and a half in Boston, so it's close enough. And so far, I'm after getting a great response to this fight, and I'm getting a lot of support from Boston coming down, and from New York as well coming down to Connecticut. So it's looking like it's going to be another good one in the Mohegan Sun.
You seem to be sort of spreading your wings very, very far. Obviously, in America, is that probably important for you in some ways? That sort of you can sort of fight both sides of the Atlantic. Obviously, you haven't fought in Cork since October, but obviously, I'm
Yeah.
guessing the plans to obviously fight again in Cork. Obviously, an Irish title fight. That's it, sort of done and dusted, sort of thing. So, like, has that always been your ambition to sort of fly both sides of the sort of pond and sort of build a base on both sides?
Yeah, 100%. I'm building a name in San Francisco, in Boston, Connecticut now as well, and back home in Ireland as well. So when I do sign with a big promoter, they can fight me anywhere, and I'll be known. But yeah, it'd be great to get a fight in Cork after the summer, and hopefully an Irish title or another title, and a good fight to get the buzz going in Cork. And yeah, as I said, it's one fight at a time. So all eyes are on Connecticut first, and then on to the next one.
Just obviously when he's speaking, obviously your gym mate, obviously Brandon, obviously made his debut, obviously on the card, obviously it was a second round stoppage. There's been so much fights recently, Tommy. I'm sort of losing
I
me
don't know how you keep up.
losing my mind, sort of. I think it was a second round stoppage. Obviously, it probably seems like you and him will obviously maybe share probably quite a few cards. Obviously, I know he's still to announce his second pro fight. He's away traveling this week. I think he's in Scotland today. I was like,
I'm actually So we're going to a Celtic match on Saturday. So he's going. I'm bringing him to Scotland. So I had a spare ticket for the Celtic match, and I gave him a text asking did he want to go. So he flew out this morning because he got a cheaper flight. And I see him in Scotland tomorrow evening. I'm going over with two of my buddies from Cork as well. So we'll have a crack over there.
I'm not sure if you obviously seen my comment back. Obviously, we're doing the blind rating, obviously, the top 10, obviously, boxers. Did you see Brandon's list?
Terrible.
I
Terrible.
think I commented this morning, last night, to say have a word with him. Like his list was terrible. I think it's Tyson Fury at 7.
Yeah, he's only a casual boxing fan, and he's a good boxer, but a boxing fan, he doesn't know much about it.
I think sort of luck comes into it in some ways. Like, I think I probably admit that it probably took me a few goes before I recorded one to sort of put out, because you're always getting one wrong somewhere, and you don't want to Terence Crawford at number 10. So I think I cheated a wee bit, whereas Brandon probably is too.
I have to hold my hand up. I'm guilty there as well.
I think Brandon probably doesn't realize that sort of you can cancel it and go again. So I think I had a few goes, so Brandon looks the worse off for it.
Definitely. I'm guilty of that now myself. I recorded a couple of times until I got it right.
You have to, like, these things are so random nowadays that you have to sort of your reps out there as well. Like, sort of someone's going like, "What do you know about boxing?" When you've Terence Crawford at number 10, it's like you couldn't get away from it.
Yeah, and that's what we're saying about Brandon. What does he know about boxing? As I said, he's a good boxer, but his boxing knowledge isn't the best.
Me and you both be getting a private message once he hears this, and he'll be saying that his was a genuine first attempt.
A pile of abuse I'll be getting off him. I'm not. I'm used to it. I'm well used to it.
I guess sort of a slower start sort of the 2024 for you. Sort of I know we obviously quite a lot of fights. Sort of recently is there sort of these wee breaks, are sort of the things that you like now. I guess it puts you back into a fight 100% rather than carrying wee niggles.
Yeah, I had a lot of niggles last year going into fights and stuff. I did niggles on both hands. Both hands were kind of sore, so I wasn't even able to spar properly 100%. Whereas this time, I'm given time to rest, but I'm still going to have 5 fights this year as the plan. And I had 6 last year, so it's still going to be a busy year. Like
that would sort of bring you on to like, so the plans sort of not next fight obviously because it's in Connecticut, but the plan obviously afterwards then maybe Irish title and then maybe one of the European straps maybe before the end of 2024. Is that the sort of vision you sort of have?
yeah, it'd be great to get the Irish title, and then I'm not too sure. I'm not too sure what titles are after that. Maybe an international or intercontinental or something like that. Maybe towards the end of the year. And yeah, it'd be great to fight for a European title, EBU title at the end of next year. But look, boxing it's a mad sport, so things change all the time. So it we just, as I keep saying, I do keep saying one fight at a time, but it is that at the minute you just have to concentrate on the next fight. But of course, I'd love to fight for the Irish title this year, and maybe another title then at the end of the year, whatever that is.
I guess obviously that's why you sort of have your dad and obviously Pedro there to sort of guide things. I was sort of speaking to Sean McComb yesterday, and he was sort of saying he's built the perfect team that all he has to do is focus on boxing. That's the dream that you have as well. Is that all you need to worry about is have a laugh when you're training, take
Yeah,
care of yourself obviously in the build up to fights and fight. If that's all you have to worry about, that's everything else sorted for you.
100%. I do have a great team, and I can trust them 100%. My dad is working on the next 3 and 4 fights all the time, so he does kind of keep me. He'd say, "What about here? What about there?" And just conversation really. But he's always working on fights and stuff. And it's the same. He's doing the same with Brandon, with Ian Buckley. The two of them are working on Brandon's next couple of fights. So like we're gonna have a busy couple of months ahead, which is brilliant. It's great to have the next one planned and the next one planned. But yeah, it's brilliant to have a kind of a map of where we're going.
Is it in some ways is your sort of dad sort of having to forget sometimes it's sort of father son sort of thing and try and keep some of the stuff from you, not that he'd want to, but when you're focused on one fight at a time, you don't want to know what you're doing in 4 fights time, so sometimes, so it's sort of hard sort of to balance that sometimes, or I guess it's sometimes when a parent tells you something, it's in one ear and out the other.
Yeah. Um. Yeah. Sometimes it's a bit of that, but like when he was any of the fighters he dealt with before, he'd be kind of talking about like where they're going to fight next and all that. So we'd always kind of it's just a bit of chit chat, and it's the same with my fights now. It's like, oh, we might fight here and we might fight here, and I was onto this fella and onto that fella, and he's onto everyone all the time. So it's just a bit of chit chat. We've nothing else to talk about. It's either talk about the bar or talk about boxing. And if there wasn't the two of them, it'd be fairly quiet in the house.
And I'm thinking as well as you want to have less talk about the bar, because if you speak about the bar, you'll have you in doing a shift.
Yeah, I'm doing a lot of shifts now. At the minute, I'm probably doing 5 or 6 days a week at the minute, but I'm still training myself, and it's other. If I didn't have the bar, I'd be fairly bored. Especially while I'm at home now, it's great to kind of have a bit of normality, doing a bit of work. If you call it work, I enjoy it up there. Do you know what I mean? It's a bit of crack.
I guess in some ways it's a good PR stunt. If people want to have a picture with you with a belt, they sort of have to come in and buy a pint in the bar. That's their sort of way around it.
There's not too many people looking for pictures now yet, but maybe in a couple of years.
Obviously, what do you sort of because I know obviously you're a big boxing man yourself. What do you sort of make of the sort of start? It's probably in some ways been a slow start in general. Obviously in boxing in 2024, we're seeing now in May and June stack card after stack card. Obviously, we have a Saudi card with Canelo Munguia. You have Taylor Catterall. You have Katie Taylor potentially on the 8th of June. Like it seems to be now that May and June is going to be the big start we probably wanted at the start of the year.
Yeah, it's looking brilliant. I think all the Saudi Arabia stuff is very good as well. There was talks that they were going to do a Matchroom versus Queensbury show in Wembley as well after the summer. So like these are huge nights like for boxing. So hopefully there's plenty of them. Like better be even Bivol. That's the best versus the best fighting each other. And then Frank Warren versus Eddie Hearn. Like these are mental. Like it's mental that these fights are happening, but it's great. Like the UFC get it all the time where the best are fighting the best, whereas boxing doesn't get that all the time, and it's great that we're getting it now.
Does it sort of does it get you dreaming sort of when you think when you get to them stages, obviously Saudi Arabia in a couple of years time when you're at that sort of level? Does it sort of excite you at the fact that big money fights and big cards, is that making your dreams turn to reality sort of in some ways, to go, I'm gonna have a big fight out in Saudi Arabia? Is that you sort of starting to think like that yet?
Yeah, it'd be nice to get a bit of Saudi money, all right, and get a few bob. But do you know what? The weird one the other day, I seen someone tagged, Turkey is his name, His Excellency. Someone tagged him on Twitter, and I went onto his page, and he was following me. So I said I better follow him back. So I might have to get into his DMs now and ask him for a fight down in Saudi. But yeah, it's brilliant what they're doing down there with the boxing. Hopefully, it doesn't take away from the shows in England and America, but I don't think it will. It's still adding mega fights, and they're all getting well paid, so it's everyone's a winner.
Obviously, in your division, obviously on the 4th of May, which is my birthday as well, Star Wars Day, the 4th of May, Canelo Munguia. How do you sort of see that? Obviously, I guess it's, Munguia's is Munguia Mexican as well, or
Yeah.
so it's sort of Mexico sort of around Cinco de Mayo and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
How do you see it? Is it probably we've seen flaws in sort of Canelo recently, but Munguia can take advantage of. Munguia was probably, he's very lucky, obviously, the fact that he's obviously robbed Spike a couple of years ago and stuff like that as well. Like, how do you sort of see that one faring out? Do you see it Canelo sort of easy enough, or Munguia have his moments?
I think Munguia will have his moments. He lets his hands go, he lets the combinations go, and he's obviously a puncher as well. Canelo's getting up in the age, but I still think Canelo has enough to win this fight. I think Canelo will end up getting maybe a late stoppage or win on points. But I think Munguia will have his moments. It's going to be a good fight. It's their styles will gel nicely. I think Munguia is never in a bad fight. He lets his hands go. He's not the hardest to hit either. So he's always in kind of a war. He can be hurt. Spike hurt him, but he can be outboxed as well, like Dennis Hogan did. But I know that was a couple of years ago. He's improving all the time. He's still young enough. He's like 27 or 28, and he's 3-weight world champion. So he's no slouch. He's definitely no slouch. So it's gonna be an entertaining fight, and it's gonna be a fight where we see what's left in Canelo, I think.
I definitely mixed it up there. Obviously, where I was saying Munguia obviously robbed Spike, it was Munguia robbed Hogan. You obviously, were you speaking there? Obviously fixed it. I was going, Craigie, actually, I realised it was Dennis Hogan. It was robbed instead.
Yeah.
But look, Tommy, obviously, I'll thank you very much for your time as always. Obviously, great to obviously have you on for a chat. Obviously, your next bag out on the 15th of June in Connecticut. I guess sometimes it's good to hear from obviously the mandatory situation and obviously how they feel sort of things are going for the next step. So any of obviously the other super middleweights will know, like, if they want to fight for the Irish title in 2024, they have to come through you first.
Yeah, thankfully it's like that as well, because it's hopefully we can get an Irish title fight this year. I'm not sure who it's going to be, but there's plenty of super middleweights in Ireland, so hopefully that can happen this year, and it'd be great to get it down in Cork. I've unreal support, as I always say, so it'd be great to treat them to a good all-Irish fight for an Irish title.
Where would you sort of look for, the Irish title fight? Like, obviously, I know you've used the Political Hall and things like that before as well. Like, is that the sort of venue, or I guess it probably maybe depend on who the opponent is. Obviously, if it's a Cork v Cork battle, and obviously you and Cathal, or obviously you and Kevin Cronin, even Emmet Brennan as well, obviously sells a good few tickets. Like, it'll probably depend on who the opponent is and how many tickets they can sell.
I think it's always hard to get. It's always going to be hard to go past the Crokin Hall, until I become a big name. But I'm a big name in Cork. I'm a lot of people know me in Cork. But until I'm fighting for big titles, I mean, it's hard to go past the Crokin Hall. It's ideal for us. Anyone that's coming to support me lives around the corner, and I only live 10 or 15 minutes away. Our pub is down the road, so it's ideal for us. So it's hard to go past the Crokin Hall.
Definitely. Well, listen, thanks very much for your time, and I'm sure we'll catch up with you, no doubt, very soon.
Cheers, Steve. Thanks very much.
Cheers, Tommy. Take care. Thanks.
On the ball.
Bye. 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 Bye.